Hello, and welcome to Armenian Enough, a podcast about life and identity in the diaspora, with your host, Lara Vanian-Green.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Armenian Enough. Today's guest is an Armenian-American writer who grew up in the Bay Area diaspora, surrounded by a rich Armenian community and her ebullient family. She graduated from UC Berkeley with a BA in English and currently lives in San Francisco, one of my very favorite cities, working in tech. Other than a newfound obsession with writing rom-coms, which, by the way, is the perfect description of this book, she spends her free time cultivating her kids, her garden, and her dark chocolate addiction. Sorry, Bro is her first published novel, and to my knowledge, it is the first ever novel featuring a bisexual Armenian woman protagonist. I swear to God, I just about died when I first heard about it. I couldn't believe that I am now living in an era where this is happening and it's out in the world. It's a beautiful book. It's a fantastic vacation read. And I'm not just saying that because I'm interviewing her. I'm interviewing her because it's awesome. So welcome to the show, Taleen Voskuni.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, Lara.
I'm excited to have you. Oh, now I hear the people in the background with the stairs.
Oh, the hammering. And it's coming in really hard.
That is loud. We'll hang on a minute.
If I go to my car, I could probably do it tethering to my iPhone. Do you think it'll be the Wi-Fi? Do you think that might be strong? Have you ever had that experience before? Has it been okay?
Let's try it.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to just walk out. It's just...
Okay. All right. So Taleen is now doing this podcast from her car. Thank you so much for finding a quiet space because the hammering was going to continue for 2 more hours, but that's safe.
Oh my God. Yes, it is. Thank goodness for Wi-Fi from the phone, being able to beam it into my laptop.
Take a moment, take a deep breath and settle in. And
good idea.
Yeah. We all should do it. 3, 2, 1. Inhale. Exhale. All right. We have arrived, I hope.
Yes.
So now, if you can, just tell me a little bit about your background. I know that you're from the Bay Area where I went to college, and it's just one of my favorite places in the world. Absolutely beautiful weather, very unique mix of people. But when I lived there, I wasn't very much in touch, actually, at all in touch with the Armenian community. So that's a part of it that I don't know. What was your experience like growing up there, and what role did Armenian culture play in your upbringing?
I was born here in Redwood City, which is like 20-30 minutes south of San Francisco. And my parents still live in, the same house that we grew up in. And I'm half Armenian. So my dad is, white Western European, been in America since the Pilgrims, like literally. We have ancestors that came on the Mayflower. And
Did you
then
really?
my mom, yeah, truly. Yeah, really. My dad's really into genealogy and has traced us back to Suzanne White. They're on literally the whites. Like that's how white we are. Yeah, so that's my dad's side of the family. And then my mom grew up in Lebanon, in Beirut, and came here in the 70s, escaped the war, the civil war there. And they met. And so I'm not going to give you the whole background there, but so I am half. And but I went to Armenian school here from pre-K, from when I was 3 years old to when I was 13. I went to KZV Armenian School in San Francisco. So Armenianness was really big part of growing up. Like that Armenian school was my whole world for a long time. It was all I knew. Like those 16 kids in my class, not only do you know all of them, their parents, their grandparents, their aunts and uncles, like you really get to know that community. And it was kind of interesting when we went to high school because KZV doesn't have a high school. It was such a culture shock. I also went to a very white, very privileged high school. Everybody was very tall and blonde, or so it felt. And I felt very othered at that school.
Really?
Yeah, extremely. I mean, There was
That
probably
was
also,
not in San Francisco proper. Sorry for talking over you. That was not in San Francisco proper. That was in Redwood.
that was actually in Atherton, which is this unincorporated, uber wealthy area,
Okay.
and the school is right there in it. Yes, I think it was also like wealth disparity also, but I think regardless of that, there's kind of like if you're not, don't look exactly like this, you're not one of us. No one was rude or outright. It's just this kind of feeling of coldness and never, like, you will never be included in part of this. So I think in a way that was so shocking to me. I started to kind of slough off my Armenianness, and my cousin and I, who both went to the school, we're only 3 months apart and we were in school together the whole time. We kind of pushed away our Armenianness a little bit, and we're sort of annoyed about things like there was no French or Spanish in Armenian school, and now we're so behind, things like that. Yeah. We were so mad that we couldn't take AP French our sophomore year, like some other students were, and like get ahead that way. And so I kind of lost touch with it a little bit there. I got back in touch with it at Berkeley in the ASA, the Armenian Student Association. Was just so fun. But, for a long time, and the way I wrote, I never really wrote about Armenianness. So Armenianness was always there, was strong. We'd go to church, it was our community, we'd talk about it. Like, we'd go to all our family friends' events, just very immersed in the culture there, but also like living this double life. Like, school was in English, like work and, my whole career is just so separate from the Armenian side of things. So it does feel sometimes like living two lives.
Do you know what really struck me about the beginning of your answer is that I am doing that thing that I assume is very common, which is confusing you with the book. I'm like, but your dad isn't, like, didn't he die? And like, I'm like, wait, you didn't say he was Mayflower White in the book, but I'm like, that's not you. I'm confusing you with your character.
I know. That was a big difference between me and the character. The character has a lot of me in it, of course, but I don't know what it's like to have an Armenian father. I really don't. So, I did the best I could, which is
killed him off.
You killed him off. Yeah, so he's dead. And also he wanted to be white, like, because I know more what that's like, the whiteness part. So that's kind of, that was what I clung to in creating his character. I'm like, all right, I don't know if I could do this convincingly, but here's the best I could do. Dead and wanted to be white. So,
that's
all
right. Interesting. Because that was literally my uncle. And my best friend, who's Persian, her dad, they wanted to be American. They were like so patriotic. They were ready to cut ties with their countries.
Wow.
My uncle was from Syria. I mean, obviously Armenian from Syria, but he came to America and he was like John Wayne and Elvis and Republican and like, just I'm going to be an American. And he almost forgot how to speak Armenian. If you spoke it too fast, he would be like, Laura, what are they saying?
Wow.
And then my friend's dad, who came here from Iran after the revolution, and he never spoke Farsi to her at all. She doesn't know a word of it. Maybe she knows a word, but she doesn't speak it at all because he didn't want to burden her with the ethnicity. Right? He wanted her to be American.
That I feel like that's a common thing. I want your life to be easier. So here's, so assimilate as much as possible. It's tough. Like, you want your kids' lives to be easier, but losing culture at the same time is, it's a painful decision that, families might be forced to make sometimes.
There was a time that I think that was the main goal. Assimilate, be an American, live the American dream, leave everything else behind.
Yes.
And now it's so different. Now we are so much more into celebrating our differences and things that make us unique and what we bring to the culture. But it wasn't like that before.
Oh, man. Yeah. I do think of Fresno, where the culture's been here for a long time, and I do get that sense of the whiteness of Armenians in Fresno and how that was necessary to survive. And even still, it doesn't even matter. I read something like Armenians weren't allowed to own land in parts of Fresno up until the 1970s.
Wow.
So it's just unreal, right?
That is nuts. I didn't think it was that recent.
Yes, me neither. I know.
So you work in tech. How is it that you just wrote a novel and you have another one on your way and you're tackling these big themes? Like, are they two separate worlds? Did one lead into the other? Like, where's the connection between your writing and what you do for a living?
Oh yeah, absolutely separate. I've just always written forever, and if I didn't have to make money, that's what I would do. I'd just be writing, writing, writing. My tech job is fun, it's fulfilling. I'm now consulting, which gives me the opportunity, gives me the space and the freedom to write. Working a full-time job and writing a novel, I think is just impossible. Like, because you give, at least for me, I give so much of myself to the job, like all the creativity and all the energy will go into it. So it was only once I started consulting that I was able to do it. I always tried to write while I was working full time, and it couldn't quite work. So I want to try consulting. I've also always want to consult and be my own boss. And it's been very fun and very rewarding. And it's, it helped me write. So that's how I balance them.
That's awesome. So you've always written short stories, or what have you written?
Yeah. Short stories. Like ever since I was 5, 6, I wrote stories. My sister and I would wake up every weekend and take out the computer paper and just draw and write stories side by side. Like we would do graphic novels because we started just drawing. You couldn't write, like that's how early we started, is before we were able to write words. And then slowly they turned into like graphic novel type things. And then slowly went to the computer where we just, type it out. But yeah, that's what I remember is like Saturday morning, 7 a.m., get the sheet of paper, Tamara and I side by side laying on the floor, drawing our stories. And I just thought everybody did that.
Wow.
I thought that's what people did. But I found that that's not true. So I think with writing, a lot of people just have it in them. Like they want to get the story out in that medium, in that fashion of like taking the time to then put it on the page. Yeah.
I wrote a lot as a teenager, like journals, poems, the beginnings of short stories. I could never finish them. But still on Saturday mornings, I ate cereal and watched cartoons. So that's pretty amazing that you and your sister were writing or drawing. That's really cute.
Yeah, but you had the compulsion to tell, right? And that's what you're doing now. You're telling stories also. We all do what we love.
That's true.
Yeah.
So how did the idea for Sorry Bro, and by the way, is that like I'm sorry bro or sorry bro? I'm not.
I think it's like sorry bro. That's how I hear it in my head.
Sorry, bro. How did the idea for Sorry Bro come to be?
Yeah, it's so hard because I don't know. No writer really knows how the ideas appear, but I know when and what appeared. So like it was late 2019, right before the pandemic, and I was riding Caltrain, our train up here, to work, and I heard the voices of these two women, and one of them like kind of exasperated, saying, can't we have just one conversation with an Armenian without mentioning the genocide? And the other woman she was talking to just very gently and curiously correcting her with openness, not judging. And somehow Sorry Bro was born out of both those elements. Like the first one being the Armenian woman getting back in touch with her Armenianness, what it means to be Armenian, and the importance of the genocide. And then that second dynamic being between the two women. Like they had something electric there that I wanted to uncover. And so it sort of came to me all at once that this book had to be about discovering, rediscovering your culture, and at the same time embracing your bisexuality, and how those two things are at odds with each other. Like I'm finally loving my Armenianness, but oh man, now I'm for the first time in love with a woman. How do I reconcile those two? So that was how it came about. And as soon as I thought of it, I just wrote it fast. Like I'd never written about Armenianness before. Like my characters were always white, and it turns out I had a lot to say about being Armenian and growing up in the diaspora community, because I just wrote and wrote so much, and there's still, besides this book, I still have so much more to say.
Were you sort of writing and discovering things about yourself at the same time?
A little bit. I think I always write to discover. Yeah, there always is that element with me. It was almost like fan fiction of my life. Like what if I had fallen for a woman instead of a man? what would have had to have happened? And I just want to explore that because it didn't happen in that way. So I needed to examine this deeply for, 350 pages to answer that one question. So I think that's part of it too.
It's just amazing to me that we're here, that we can have a book like this out. And in fact, two, because there's another one coming out in a month or two. 2 books in the same year featuring bisexual Armenian protagonists is like, I don't even know what to do with myself. And I couldn't help but think back to 15-year-old me. And that was when I realized that I was at the time bisexual. My sexuality has gone through various stages, from, straight to bi to lesbian for many, many years, and then back to something pansexual and bisexual. Like, I don't know where I fit in. I'm open to anything and anyone. I mean, I'm married in a monogamous relationship, attraction wise. And then my first love was a woman. So all of those things were very much a part of my life. And I remember at 15 thinking, oh no, my life is over. I'll never get married. I'll never have children. I'm just going to be this like sad lesbian for the rest of my life. No, I mean, but you have to think about it was like 80. How old am I? It was 1988.
Oh, yes.
So,
yeah. Oh, I get it.
There's no gay people having children as a part of the cultural reality or getting married or any of that stuff. And there's certainly 100%, there was no such thing as gay Armenians, right? You very much understood, and I don't even know how, but it just infiltrated you, that being gay or queer or any version of the rainbow spectrum and Armenian was not acceptable. And I felt very strongly that I had to make a choice. And I could still be Armenian without being part of the Armenian community.
Yeah.
But I couldn't be by being a part of the Armenian community. I would have to hide that part of myself. So it was a very conscious decision of like, hey, if you guys aren't going to accept me and I have to be true to myself, then I guess we're going to part ways.
Yeah. Oh my God. Such a, painful choice. And you chose the braver path for sure of, I'm going to be true to myself. That's hard to do. Like, I commend you for that. Honestly, I think it's much easier to do the opposite, to push down, your sexuality, especially with bisexuality. So that's, I think that's very brave.
It just felt like self-preservation, honestly. I was like, if the people around me, my family, my friends aren't going to support me, then I'm going to surround myself with people who are supportive. Luckily, my mom was pretty supportive. Aww. And she was super supportive for an Armenian mom in 1988. Let's not beat around the bush on that one. But, she was like, that's great, honey. Just don't tell anyone. You do what you need to do. Just don't tell anyone. And I was like, okay, cool. But go ahead.
That is the support in 1988. That's as good as it get for as good as it got.
She was incredibly progressive for her time.
Yeah.
She had tons of gay best friends, and like we went to drag shows together. My mom was really cool. Yeah. But there's still something that changes when it's like you're a kid,
Yes, yeah.
So all this, sorry, I'm just making it about me now. All this to say, a book like this could be life-changing and will be life-changing for someone. It's like a blueprint for being both, right? And now you can, and now it's possible. And when you see it in print and you see that someone's done it before you or told the story before you, these characters exist in our community. I mean, I didn't know what I was missing. I felt estranged in a strange way. I felt estranged from the community, but I didn't realize that I was missing out. And it would have been lovely to have had a healthy relationship with being Armenian, with being in the Armenian community, and being myself. At that time, I don't think that was possible,
I was going to say hard to do. Like how would, yeah, it would have been near impossible probably.
It felt like that.
Yeah.
And I'm just so excited for the kids that are coming of age now. And we've got this, I don't even know, I don't have the words. It's beautiful, emerging, growing, enlightenment, like sort of era of the Armenian community in the diaspora. And I didn't think I'd see it in my lifetime, but I'm so excited that it's here. And I'm so glad that you wrote this book.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I felt when I saw in Armenian Weekly, like a pride section, I was like, wow, I really never thought I would see this. And that was while my book was still like, it had been accepted, but it wasn't on the shelves yet. And I just felt so like a little bit of relief, like, okay, maybe if Armenian Weekly can have, something about pride, maybe I'm not going to get so much hate from certain types of Armenians, but I have not, truly have not. So I've been really impressed with
you
my
need
book.
To try harder.
maybe it's reaching the exact people it needs to reach, but it's not reaching everyone, but
oh my God. When I got my first piece of hate mail and stuff like that, I was so excited. My husband was laughing at me. I was like, I've made it. These people have heard of me and they hate me. This is amazing. And I still have that attitude towards it.
Yeah, they've heard of me. Yes, exactly. I'm making it. I'm out there. Mm-hmm. The word's spreading.
We definitely need to get you out there and this book out there more because you need to reach some of the haters.
Yes.
That's just me imposing my wishes onto you. But obviously, one of the things that struck me in reading your book was not just the concept of being Armenian enough, but I should have written down the page. There's a specific page in the book where Nar, your protagonist, actually expresses that she never feels Armenian enough, yes. Which I think is a very powerful moment and expression. I'd like to know more about that. How has that shown up in your life when you haven't felt Armenian enough, and when has that happened to you?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like all the time. Being half Armenian for a start is part of it. Being half can be isolating. Like, as I said, I went to Armenian school, but always felt my Armenian itself, the language, the reading wasn't good enough. Like, if it was my turn to read Armenian out loud in class, I would just have this anxiety that, reading in English didn't. And I think it's just because I wasn't as immersed in it at home. So it was always my weakest subject. And I was so annoyed by that because I could see that it was because I wasn't super immersed, but at the same time, I didn't blame my mom or my dad for that. I was fine with that. And again, no one said anything. It's just a feeling a lot of the time. And like even at Berkeley, like I was saying about the ASA there, the Armenian Student Association, such a fun and like very lax environment. I sort of felt how deeply Armenian most of the ASA students were, and how in a way I was almost on the fringes in terms of the Armenian experience I'd had. Like, I only got the intense Armenian mom. They had the intense Armenian mom and dad. And it was just evident that it was different. They would slip more Armenian into their everyday speaking. They would, like, we went on a Tahoe trip and they were making all the Armenian dishes. It was just, I felt like, it's more a part of them than it is of me. But it really was a big part of my life too. I mean, Armenianness was and is huge for me too. So maybe it's just this like self-comparison of always like, how do I be the perfect Armenian, right? There's this idea of this impossible standard of the perfect Armenian that doesn't actually exist, but it always feels like somehow we're held to it.
It's absolutely an impossible standard. And not only, I mean, maybe that person exists, but they wouldn't do well at all in an American community. You can't be perfect at everything. And,
yes.
I always say when I'm with a group of Armenians, I end up feeling really American.
Oh, yeah.
My points of view, my English without an accent, hopefully. But when I'm with a group of all Americans, then I'm like, oh, I'm not one of them either.
Entirely, completely. That trap between two worlds, I acutely feel that all the time.
I know what I wanted to ask you before. So you talked about the household that you grew up in where your dad was, Mayflower descendant and your mom was Armenian. Did your father speak any Armenian, or was Armenian spoken in the house at all?
Yeah, so my mom spoke Armenian to us in the house. Like it was my first / simultaneous language with English. So she did a lot, and he learned some too. But he would just say phrases like "yertank," things like that, and his "your tonk,"
Yeah.
stuff like that was cute. So my dad is like a very introverted, like engineer type. So he, instead of speaking, like he really liked to learn about the culture. Like he would read about the history and things like that. And sometimes he would spout facts that I didn't know. So that was sort of his contribution. He was very receptive, and open to the Armenianness and interested.
I love that. Did you guys ever visit Armenia?
We did. We all did together once only in 2006 on a pilgrimage, actually, with St. John's Armenian Church here with Father Sarkis, who's just like the most wonderful man. My sister and I I was 21, almost 21, and I was 20, I guess, and she was like 17, maybe 18. It's kind of a bratty age. We're like, oh, we're going on a tour, like with a church group. But we ended up having the best time, like the time of our lives. Like, I think, going to Armenia with a priest is kind of a good way to do it. Like, we got entrance everywhere. I don't know. He's just a really wonderful pastor and priest, like, open-minded, progressive man, and just fun, So, and we really loved our group. So we did. And Dad, was in the Armenian churches. And I remember that was specifically when he knew something about, Armenian history that I didn't know. And people were surprised that he knew.
Yeah. That's awesome. That really reminds me of when I went to Armenia with my husband in 2008, so not long after you.
Yeah.
And we weren't married then, but he was so excited about going. And, every time we travel someplace, we get one of those DK books or something and read all about the place we're going to go visit. But I didn't do that because I'm like, we're going to Armenia.
Yeah.
You read the book. And he did. And he also was like, this is the statue of Mother Armenia. This is like, he was like my little tour guide. And it was absolutely adorable.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah, the curiosity and the interest from non-Armenians is always very appreciated.
They seem so welcoming, much more than a lot of Armenians are to other cultures. But that is changing. So
yeah.
Your mom was a progressive to marry an American.
Oh, and she got grief for it. Believe me. Some people said stuff like, my mom's mom got cancer shortly after and passed away. And so I never met my Armenian grandma, which is just like one of the sadnesses of my life. But they would say stuff like, she killed her mom by marrying an American, like God. awful things like that. But that was who she loved. So that was who she was going to marry. And too bad.
Oh my God. I mean, of course people said stupid things like that, but how hurtful.
Oh, I know. Oof. Yep. Yeah, I think it's that kind of thing that you deal with. You're like, how do we have this mindset that we have to, do all these things and be perfect? And it's because of comments like that, just stick with you, or you heard somebody else said that about someone else and you think, oh, this is what's expected of me, to be a perfect, normal, quote unquote, Armenian.
I have a hard time understanding how patriotism, which is a good and healthy emotion or experience, how that morphs into like this supremacist kind of weird, like anti-miscegenation sort of.
I know.
I just don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, I think they can be exclusive. Like, you can love your country and your culture without excluding everyone else or anything that doesn't adhere to some like middle average of what it's supposed to be. I don't know. It is bizarre.
I think that's the entire point of the podcast. The entire point of it is you can be this and that.
Yes.
And no one's going to kick you out of the club and no one's going to gatekeep, and you're welcome here. And, I've said this a million times, so I'm sorry for repeating myself, but we don't have the numbers where we can be selective on who gets to be Armenian.
Yes.
No, we need everyone. Everyone is welcome here.
That's true. What's with this infighting? Let's all band together. We need each other. No one else is going to help us, as we've seen, as the world has demonstrated time and time again. Like, we need each other. And
that's just with marrying people who aren't Armenian. Like, that's one sliver of the how you get kicked out of the club pie. Being gay can get you kicked out pretty quickly. And I don't even know how bisexuality is really received. Go ahead. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's not. I think understanding bisexuality, I feel like Armenians really like black and white terms. Like when you present bisexuality, it's like, bisexuality inche, like meg hadmandre, like, choose one. This, like, the idea that like maybe a bisexual woman married to a man is actually straight. And if any man is bisexual, he'll just be perceived as gay. Like that's a little bit of what I've seen. But I think with bisexuality, if there's some kind of like adherence to the norm, like, okay, yeah, she's bisexual, but married to a man and has children, then it's almost like, the bisexuality doesn't matter. Maybe she's not really anyway, if she wants to feel that in her heart, whatever, who cares? Because on the outward appearance, like that outward perception seems to matter more.
That's so true. And then like, if you're in what looks like a heterosexual relationship, then you can have children. And that's ultimately like the goal, like go forth and multiply,
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Which is why I'm very vocal about my sexuality, because they literally have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
At 50, it would be strange to suddenly be afraid. But, I'm married to a man who I'm very much in love with. We have a beautiful child, but I'm not dead. I haven't stopped being attracted to like my type of woman or person, because they're not all women. There are some in between. And that's a whole nother topic, but I have nothing to lose. So if I can't speak up and say, we exist, we're here, I could have been here married to a woman. It just absolutely could have gone either way.
Yeah.
I don't want to blend in. It makes a very awkward conversation, by the way, on like play dates when your kid's a toddler. Oh my God. Because I used to volunteer for the Trevor Project on their crisis line.
Amazing. Oh my God. Amazing.
Best thing I ever did. So I would say like, I can't do that on Wednesday. Like I'm volunteering, and they're like, oh, where? And the conversation opens up, and so many people are like, why do you do that for a gay place? And I'm like, because I'm bi, or, because I'm like if I had this hotline when I was 15, 17, that would have been, I wish this had existed for me. I would have had someone to talk to. So I'm there now for other people. And they were just like, you just see the gears grinding to a halt. Like, yes. Okay, she's married. And
I understand that. I was having a conversation at a like picnic the other day with the Armenian school, the parents. And someone asked, what's your book about? And I was like, oh boy, here we go. So I told them, and you just saw the like smiles turn to fake smiles. Like, it's like, and also like trying to understand, like, I'm seeing her husband right here next to her. I don't get it. Like, why did you write this? I think there's a lot of confusion when they see me like, wait, why did you write this? Is she secretly gay? I think there's maybe some of that. It's like, she must be secretly gay. Like you can't be both, right?
Does that mean your husband's gay? Is this a fake marriage? Like,
yeah, it's just a marriage of convenience, guys. That's what we did it.
I think it is difficult. Nuance is always difficult to accept, and nuance doesn't really appeal to the masses. So I definitely feel like the way that you described Armenians and immigrants in general prefer to have something black and white. So do at least half of the people, right? And I think that was
good point. Yeah.
I won't say which half.
Yeah.
But also I think that was very much the attitude in the 90s when I came out like to everyone at 17, and I was still a senior in high school and whatever. And I think it was very much like even gay people were like, bisexuality doesn't exist. Like you're just afraid to be gay. Yes. I'm like, not really afraid. I like who I like.
Yes. There was a lot of that, and there's still like there's this idea of biphobia. It's just like there are all these perceptions of bisexual people like promiscuity or like not really, or just like dipping their toe in the water of gayness and all these things that aren't necessarily true.
Not at all.
Yeah,
not at all. Ugh. Who was the audience that you were writing this for?
I mean, when I was writing it. I kind of was writing it for my sister because my sister and I, again, like are each other's first readers. So I was like, I want to amuse my sister. So all the funny parts, you know, and like the parts taken from our family are very much for her. But I mean, thinking about the audience, there are a couple, you know, this book might be the most, or maybe not most useful, but this book certainly, I hope it will be useful for non-Armenians and people who don't know that much about Armenian culture. Like for me, this is my way of spreading the seeds of Armenian historical and cultural knowledge. Like I want the world at large to know about us, our struggles, both the past and the present. So like, you know, this book is targeting romance readers. Most of them, you know, are going to be Americans, non-Armenians. It's just a larger audience. But like, surprise, it's actually a book about Armenianness, like sneakily didactic novel to teach you about our culture.
It is. It really is.
But yeah, so there's that for sure. And my hope is there that, you know, non-Armenians will start to learn about us, will sympathize, will care. And the next time an Armenian issue comes along, maybe they won't stand silent. Maybe they'll share something. Maybe they'll call their representative or whatever it is. That's my big goal. And I know one book alone is not going to do that. But, you know, more books, movies, whatever it is, I'm like not going to stop. So that's one audience for sure. And of course, I can't discount this. This book is for Armenian readers and queer Armenian readers. You know, I don't think there is a book like this. If I may be so bold as to say, I'm always happy to be mistaken and to be corrected on it. But like any book that portrays modern Armenian diaspora life in this like humorous, light way, while also still examining the difficult parts of being Armenian. So I wanted this book to exist for me, for other Armenians, to see themselves reflected in it. I think also Armenians need some lighter fare in our canon of literature. Just like we need modern, ordinary life to be seen, reflected. So that's why I wrote this book. And I love when I hear from Armenian readers. While I was still reading reviews, I don't read reviews anymore. But while early, that's a whole thing. But apparently, you're not supposed to as an author. But anyway, I never talk about them.
How can you not?
I know, but now I truly just don't. I like pretend it doesn't exist. I've blocked all the sites. But I read one from an Armenian reader that I loved, and she said, "This book has confirmed to me that I've never had a unique thought in my life." And I went on to read it. And the idea there was that everything, so much of her life that she's felt, the things she's thought, the things she's seen and experienced were in this book. And it's just amazing that there are Armenians all over the world in all these different diaspora communities. And like an Armenian in Toronto, for instance, could have a tantik like this or whatever it is, have a mother like this, it'd be experiencing the same thing. So I think, you know, I tried to capture it, and maybe I did a little bit, but it's also just a testament to the Armenian community, how similar, you know, a lot of our experiences are. There's so much different, of course, but I just love when the book resonates.
Your characters are truly recognizable. Like, I mean, I feel like if you had to cast this for a movie, like we know exactly what these people look like. We can point out those characters in our lives. I can't think of the name offhand of like the popular handsome guy that everyone's into, but I felt like I could smell Rafi. Dude, I felt like I could smell his cologne while I was reading the book. I felt like when he like cornered Nar, I felt myself like leaning back against the couch, like, oh God, get out of my face.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I know. I've met so many Rafis.
The book should be called Sorry, Rafi.
Sorry, Rafi.
I'm really thrilled that this is a perfect beach read. Just so easy to read, so like engaging, and the genocide is mentioned, but not in a heavy-handed or preachy. It just as a thing that is, and you've sort of very bravely questioned, like, why do we keep bringing this up? Is this the only thing that we're going to ever talk about? The individual stories the human stories are what make people care.
Yeah, that's why I'm hoping for it. Like, so I needed to write at least the first book, had to talk about the genocide and have this light subplot about Nade understanding the importance of why the Armenian genocide still matters. And it's the accessibility, like you said, it's that beach readness of it, the accessibility to any reader to be able to read this and learn about Armenians. I think a lot of the books we have as Armenian are really beautiful novels, very profound and harder to read. A lot of them are tougher to read, which is fine. But I want to write one, I think we need some accessible novels too. I think in comedy, like Armenian comedians are doing an incredible job of this, portraying modern life. Thinking of three comedians, Amy Kazanjian, Mary Basmatjian, and of course Vahe Berberian. And there's so many others, but those are the ones I, follow more closely. And they do that, but I hadn't seen it in book form. Like, why not have a kirk of this? And that's why I'm so happy that Penguin Random House decided to publish this, because now this book is in Barnes and Noble. Like, it will share Armenianness in a way that I don't think has really been shared before. I just hope that, it reaches more and more readers.
You're absolutely spot on with that. And I didn't really think about that our books tend to be either for insiders, people who are already part of the community and know everything, or if they have a wider appeal, they're often very serious and harder to read. Yeah, very literary, which is fine. And I love those books as well. But
me too.
This is like, get popcorn and like something to sip and just sit and cuddle up on your sofa or on vacation and read. This is really fun and interesting. And there were so many moments that I just put the book down for a second and laughed. Because I could picture something exactly, or like I know that feeling of walking into a Barahan test and the gossipy ants or the weirdness of not knowing anyone or meeting new people, and just all of it was very relatable. Very relatable.
Thank you. Oh, I love to hear it. I also love to hear it's funny, because humor is so subjective, but who doesn't like hearing that their book was funny?
Yeah, it was funny. Awesome. I felt like I got a really good feel for you, which is maybe why I was like, wait, but your dad's alive. You didn't grow up with an Armenian grandma? I'm really confused.
Yeah, I didn't. I know. I'm a made up nene. I know. But it is like the voice it's very much me. And I think that's why I wrote it so quickly, is just, I thought, why don't I write exactly like I think? Why don't I just write like this? Let's see what happens. And it worked. It was the first time I tried that. And because it was less serious and literary than the things I'd written before, I think, I don't know, somehow the voice resonated much, much better and with agents and ultimately with the publisher.
It felt very genuine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love to hear that.
So towards the end of the book and your acknowledgement, you specifically thank queer Armenians for reading the book. Tell me why that was important to you, and two-part question, what kind of stories do you think that we still need to see out there?
I absolutely want to thank queer Armenians for picking up the book. I don't think there is, and again, happy to be wrong, an Armenian book that meditates on this issue of like, how do you be Armenian and be queer at the same time? And so I want to show that you can be both and that there is hope. You're not invalid as Armenian just because you're queer. You can be Armenian and queer and also have a happy ending. Like, now I know not every family is going to have that. And, Nada and her families and very positively, but again, it's romance and a comfort book. So why not? Why not have this joyful queer book instead of one that ends in tragedy? I wanted queer Armenians to hold on to it as a beacon, ideally, in an ideal circumstance. So, and I'm part of that community. It felt important to thank them for picking up the book. And I love when I hear from queer Armenian readers, young and older ones, usually saying like, I wish I had this book when I was a teenager, and me too, I did too. Yeah. And younger ones saying like, oh my God, this is exactly what it's like. Actually, a woman messaged me saying that it propelled her to come out to her parents and it went okay. So
wow.
I was just like, what?
Oh, I got goosebumps.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, not every gay love story has to end in a murder-suicide.
Yes.
And those things are horrible and they're real. Yes. And they're tragic enough. And it used to be queer cinema trope anyway, that like, yes. the queer person always ended up alone and possibly suicidal.
Yep.
And that's not how things go anymore, right? We're evolving and we can tell happy stories. And I love that. I love that we can tell happy stories. And not only can you be queer and Armenian, but you can be good at both.
Oh, yes. You can be in the community. You can be part of it. Like Yerebuni, her character, the love interest, is that. She's deeply entrenched in the community. Like, she dedicates her life to Armenian genocide education, and she's on the board of this Explore Armenia organization, and she's openly queer. So I want to show that, people like her could exist as well.
So what do you think we still need to see in stories?
Oh my gosh, Laura. So many stories. Like, I myself have like a zillion Armenian stories left to tell, and I'm just one person with one experience. I think there needs to be a fictional Armenian book that meditates on this idea of your podcast, Armenian Enough. What is that? And like a nonfiction book just came out, a collection of essays from these Armenian yes, I'm going to say, We Are All Armenian. And it has like Chris Bojalia, Nancy Krikorian, and like the late brilliant Naira Kuzmich, and so many others, like Armenians that I admire so deeply. And that's an essential book. And I would love to see a fictional take on that theme also. I feel like there needs to be a book about like what it feels like to be in the diaspora while, Armenia and particularly Artsakh are under attack. Like that whole disparity in the feelings there's a lot there. And a modern take on like the great Armenian novel. Like, I'm thinking a really thick book, like a 500-pager. It's like a multi-generation tale from, historic Armenia right before the genocide to escaping, maybe Syria, Lebanon, then to the US. And then this like modern Armenian condition where there's like no more land-based struggle. I'm so interested there in like what we gained and what we lost. Like yesterday, I was talking to an Armenian friend about our family's histories in the genocide and then escaping war in Beirut yet again, 50, 60 years later. And then like later in the conversation, she and I just talking about the mundane parts of our lives and our children. And I'm thinking like, God, my ancestors like struggled and died and did all this so I can go on vacation in Big Sur and like hire a parenting coach to be a better mom. I mean, like there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Like I want to write this book, but I lack the talent right now. But, writing is lifelong, and I'm trying
I wouldn't sell yourself short like that, but I understand if you don't want to take on that kind of a tome. But
yeah, not yet, but I think one day I will.
I remember a few years ago, I recorded a little blurb for Armenian Pride, like whatever the gay pride thing, but for the Armenian version of that. And I said something like, our ancestors survived the genocide so that we could truly be free to be who we are.
Yes.
And I had a bunch of like, oh, you're saying that people died in the genocide so you can be gay. And I'm like, I did not say that. That is encompassed in that's a part of what I said. Like, that's included in being yourself. But no, nobody died so that we could be gay. But hey, they died for our freedom. And the best gift that we can give them is being ourselves, being true to ourselves, carrying the culture forward. Now, I didn't say bloodline, DNA, whatever. My child is also half Armenian, but I never think about her like that. She's Armenian. Like, she is super patriotic. She really tries to speak, and she's pretty decent at reading and stuff like that. The cards are stacked against her because nobody speaks Armenian at home. Sorry. Yeah. We tried. We failed. It is what it is. But she feels it in her heart, And that's my job. To give her that sense of where she comes from, that sense of history of her ancestors. And nobody better tell her she's not Armenian enough. I will become Mama Bear on that one.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
This is the future.
Yes. And I think the future is bright. It's more complicated, but it's better. It's absolutely better. Yeah. But even when I think about the Armenians that are perpetuating Armenian culture in media, in, books and art and things, they are, for the most part, quote unquote, alternative Armenians, right? Like, it's actually not all the time, but I think about like many of the artists I'm thinking of, and writers, and a lot of the time they don't look like that idea of picture perfect Armenian, but it's interesting because they're doing so much work to this end of furthering Armenianness and culture and language. So that's something interesting to think about too.
I mean, frankly, we're the ones that have something to say.
That's true.
If you're towing the party line, nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
So I know that you're working on another novel. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so my next novel is called Lavash At First Sight, and that's coming out, I believe, July 2024, due to change by a couple months here or there, and also published by Penguin. And that is another sapphic romance. This time, it's not a coming out story. So this time, both women are out to their families to like various degrees of like reluctance and acceptance, but their parents are enemies, like lifelong.
Romeo and Juliet.
Yes, I did like Armenian Romeo and Juliet, and it takes place in Chicago, and it's a foodie rom-com because both families own rival Armenian packaged food businesses. So it takes place in Chicago over like 4 days, 5 days, all these events, like kind of reality TV style, like cooking and social type of events. And it's a lot of fun. This book is a lot more fun. Like Sorry Bro is fun, but this book is true frivolity. Like there's nothing deep about this book. And I think that's okay. Like it really is. Like we need one like this too. So I'm working on that. And that one is almost, I'm just editing at this point. And I'm drafting a new book now, which is
What?
Yeah, I'm so excited about this book. I've written like an eighth of it maybe. And it's, I call it, The Great Aunt Ghost Mystery, and it's women's fiction, so it's not a romance, this one. And it's about how two black sheeps of the family, one living and one dead, team up to find the missing Armenian Bible, which is their family's heirloom. Wow. And it's very much about like ownership, like who owns important cultural artifacts. So it's also very much about family and being accepted in your family.
That's amazing. Look at you. Yeah. Oh my God.
But we'll see. I haven't sold that one, so no guarantee anyone can ever read it, but please send good vibes my way so this book can get sold.
I think you'll be good. I think your book has gotten a lot of buzz, and that is what a writer from New York told me who's not even Armenian, because she saw I posted something and she was like, yeah, that book's getting a lot of buzz. I'm like, oh, really?
I was so shocked. Like it was reviewed in the New York Times, which was not something I even dared to dream about. Like it wasn't on my bucket list or anything like that. So I was really surprised there. That's really cool.
Well, I was going to say, I'm not a writer. I don't have a novel to sell. So do you think that because this book, I assume is doing well, certainly enough to get a second book published, do you think that that'll open the door for more Armenian writers?
Yes, I do. I think it's very much like that. I think they'll say like, oh, wow, there's this like niche Armenian market. People are enjoying reading about other cultures. Like that's just the fact. Like I love it, and I love reading it through the lens of romance too. Because again, it's very like joyful celebration a lot of the time when you're reading a romance novel about another culture, like learning about the food and the good things with, a little bit of nuance of, not everything's rosy and perfect. But so I think it will open the door, and I hope that there are going to be a lot more Armenian authors. I've been in touch with many of them, and I'm very excited about their future books.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I also feel like when I watch a movie, like even something like Crazy Rich Asians or something like that, and I think like, oh, I recognize, obviously I'm not Asian, but like this would be an Armenian family, this could easily translate to Armenian stories. And I think it's like that a lot with like Jewish culture or Italian mothers or something. Like it's very, very similar, the immigrant experience.
Yes, entirely. I know I was reading my mentor Jesse's book Dial A for Aunties, which is going to become a Netflix movie too, which is so exciting. And my sister and I were saying like, wow, yeah, like so much of the culture is different and so much of it is so similar too. Yeah. There's something about immigrant culture that, deeply resonates with me, and I love reading about it.
Well, thank you so much for writing this book, for coming here to talk about it. I cannot wait. I can't wait to read your next book.
Oh, thank you. It'll be a fun one. Hopefully, we'll see.
I'm sure it will be. If you have a few more minutes, can we do our 5 fun questions that we wrap up every podcast with?
Yeah.
I'm curious now, because I haven't changed these. Have you listened to entire podcast episodes? I'm putting you on the spot here.
I have, but now I'm realizing like I don't remember at all. Like,
great!
I haven't listened to the full, or like maybe I just don't remember. Like, listen to a couple that all the way.
No, that's okay. I prefer that you don't remember.
Okay, good.
It's not a quiz. I prefer that you don't remember. So, number 1, what is your favorite Armenian food?
Oh, I sini kifte. It's just, I absolutely love it. To me, it's like comfort home. To me, it tastes like my mom loves me. It's hard to, because it takes so much work, like all the kneading and the layers. Oh my God. And we'd have it on special occasions like, my birthday or whatever it is. I love sini kifte.
That is the fastest anyone has ever come up with an answer to that. This is normally where I edit 5 minutes of silence and then somebody goes, I don't know if that's Armenian. You were like right on there. Are you sure you don't have this prepared?
Yeah, no, totally. I've thought about this before because I included a lot of them in my book too.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
The second question is, do you understand both Western and Eastern Armenian?
Understand? Yes, unless, it's kind of an interesting thing. Western for sure. Like I can understand pretty much anything unless like the highest level is being spoken. Like very
academic,
extremely literary academic, then I won't really understand. But Eastern, yes, and it's the opposite almost. So like if a priest is speaking in Eastern, or a politician, I'm much more likely to understand them than like someone in Yerevan, like on the street, like the cab driver, for instance. Like then I'm like, oh boy, or Barskahai. Sometimes very difficult. And I realize it's because of the slang. Like, I don't know Persian slang. I don't know Russian slang. That's what's going on there.
You know what? I am exactly the same. I have an easier time understanding academic Eastern Armenian than I do the slang.
Yeah.
Or the everyday Armenian.
Yeah, exactly.
What is the most Armenian thing about you?
Oh, God.
You can take your time.
Oh, man. Yeah, I know. Because I was just talking about the whitest thing about me, which is, can I also say that? And maybe it'll help.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll help spread. The whitest thing about me is that I'm going to LA in 3 weeks, by the way, for an event. I'll tell you more about that. But,
okay.
And I know probably like 300 people in Los Angeles, including family, and I want to stay in a hotel. It's just like the whitest thing about me. Give me my space, my own
girl,
bed.
Yes. Same.
Oh, okay. Hold on. I know this is where I'm going to have to think because I know there's so much, but I'm trying to think of like what is classically Armenian that I embody also.
Like before the podcast, before we started recording, I was telling you how I'm like a major bargain hunter.
I know.
I cannot pay full price. It's an insult.
Oh, wait. You know what is actually kind of embarrassing Armenian about me? I love couture fashion. I'm like, I don't own like anything of it. But if I see, instead of being turned off by a Gucci label, I'm like, ooh, Gucci. That's very Armenian diaspora of me, very like LA. I don't know what it is, but
that's so funny.
There's this like weird snobber, like, there's part of that my heart just goes toward like a fancy designer thing or like a over the top crystal. Like I will like it. Like I don't know what it is. There's something in my DNA that will just enjoy that. Oh.
I'm, on this topic, I'm so, I guess, fortunate, although it's a little boring, but my husband curtails my decorating because if it were up to me, there'd be a lot more velvet wallpaper and mirrors in my house.
Oh, I love that. I want velvet wallpaper. Yeah.
I know. We have like an accent wall and I'm like, oh, this is so beautiful. I should do more rooms. And he's like, it's enough.
Yeah. Michael Adam, everything. Like I'm all about him.
I got my first Michael Adam piece and I was like, this is it? It's not even signed. Like, where's the stamp that says it's Michael Adam? Like, we're just supposed to know.
Oh man, when I just registered for all that. I was like, okay, people want to buy this. And I want this. So let's do it. So that's how I have gained all my Michael Adam things is from the bridal.
I'm going to say something that's probably not a smart thing for me to say right now, but I was very disappointed that on the website where I ordered this, it was a little gold bowl. And then when it came yesterday or the day before, actually, it had a little card in it that said, like, Michael Aram is an American, like almost all caps, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, really? What? Like, nothing about your heritage?
That's so bizarre because usually he does stuff for Armenians too. Like he just donated, some gifts for the Armenian school, and that is so strange.
I was like, really? Not even like American Armenian, or like you're not even going to hyphenate. You're just American. It's fine. I mean, that's please bizarre. Identify as whatever you want. Yeah. I just thought I thought it would have given it a little extra cachet.
Oh, I know. Me too. That too. I know. Use it to your advantage, man. It's 2023. Like people. Yeah.
He's obviously never coming on this podcast now, but
no.
Anyway, just stabbed myself. Sorry. Next question. This will be edited out. Not your answer, but
I just rambling. I muted myself.
I didn't hear it. So question 4 is, who is your favorite Armenian celebrity? And I'm not trying to get you into trouble, but
That's hard. I mean, when you just said it outright, like I think of Angela Sarafian because she's so otherworldly beautiful. Like yes. I don't think anyone is as gorgeous as her. Like, oh my God. So I mean, her face like popped into my mind. But I mean, I love Vahet Bedberian. I've seen him a few times, and he's like family friends from way back. I mean, I don't know him, but like I know he was connected to my family in Lebanon, I believe. So I feel some kinship towards him.
He's great. He did our podcast very early on, and
I need to listen to that one.
It was so cool because I always send people that I interview like just a sample of the questions that I'm going to be asking. And he's the only one that has ever said, and I probably wouldn't even do this, but he was like, don't send me any questions. I want everything to be, at that moment, like just spontaneous. And I was like, are you sure? But the thing that really impressed me was his level of trust.
Yeah.
He didn't know me at all. And he really trusted me, and we had an amazing conversation.
Oh my God. That's incredible. Special. And he is. And that's also a testament to like the types of genius there is. Like some people can just be so funny and interesting off the cuff that I do not have. I want to see those questions.
Me too.
Right. I like have to take time and think about it.
Because if I don't, I'm going to be the next 3 months will be me sitting up in the middle of the night, not every night, but many nights going, I should have said this.
Yes.
Why didn't I say that? And
I know.
Okay. The last but not least in terms of importance question is, do you, Taleen, know how to read Armenian coffee cups?
Ooh, no. And it's so funny you say this because there is, this is one of the questions because the coffee cup scene is so important in the book, or it comes at a very like seminal moment when Nada and Yerebuni are reading cups.
I remember.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I know. No, I don't. And yet I try to, like I've made it several times now at home, more than several, many, many times at home. I'm kind of like very sensitive to caffeine, so I can't drink it too much. But when I do, I love surge. So I've attempted to look into the cups and like see what I see and try and divine what that could mean. Or, I have an idea of what, like how you can read is kind of like, there's this intuition of like, okay, what are you feeling? What do you need in your life? Okay, now read based on that. Like that's how you will see the images. So I try, but I have not been trained and I don't know how to, and I'm very interested in the practice. So yeah.
Does your mom know, obviously, because she would have taught you?
No, she doesn't. I think my mom is a little superstitious and doesn't want to go down that route. Also, it's just very like if you're reading someone else's cup, like you're holding their fate in your hands, and mom doesn't want to be held responsible for that kind of thing.
Which is why I read these things with the healthy dose of skepticism. No, but I love reading coffee cups, and so I want to tell you a couple of things. One is that if you go to an Armenian store, which I assume there's something. Oh, you have Henry's House of Coffee. You have no excuse. You can get a decaf blend.
Oh, of Armenian coffee?
Yes,
I didn't know that.
Armenian coffee is
just the grind.
Just the term for exactly. It's just the term for the grind.
Oh my gosh, I should do that. I never. Okay,
you should do that.
Wow, I'm going to, and that's actually where we order our coffee from every month. It comes.
Sweet.
Yeah.
They were on our show too.
Yeah. Oh.
So I always tell people it's like looking at the clouds and how you sometimes see an image like, oh, there's a duck or there's an elephant or there's whatever. That's kind of what this is like. It's like dream interpretation. It's just it connecting with an image. And then the secondary question is like, how do you feel about that? So like I see an eye. Is it like somebody watching over you, a protective eye, or is it an evil eye of somebody looking at you with, bad intentions? And it's like, you just, and then don't take it so seriously, and you can have a lot of fun doing it. So if you go and order some coffee,
Which I will,
would you mind turning it over and letting the sediment dry and snapping a few photos for us to post on Instagram?
Oh, I would love to. Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh, definitely. Yeah.
That would be awesome. And then we can invite our readers to read your coffee cup, and I'll do it too.
Oh my gosh, how fun. I would love that. Yeah, I would be honored and absolutely.
Did you want to tell me on air why you're coming to LA in a few weeks, or did you want to tell me
Yes. Yeah, let me tell you on air. So on May 21st at 4:00, that's a Sunday, Galas, the Armenian queer organization, is actually holding a book event for me, like a book celebration of Sorry Bro,
Awesome.
at the Arts. I will get the name in a moment, but it's sort of like downtown LA area. So I'm so excited about this. I've been waiting for this, and Marina at Galas has just been incredible. So it's co-hosted, it's hosted by Galas, and it's the Poetic Research Bureau, and 2220 Arts and Archives is where it is.
What day is May 21st? What day of the week?
Sunday. It's a Sunday.
Sunday. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I will be there.
Oh my God, that'd be a dream. And Abriel Books is going to be selling my books. So it's just so
sweet.
Exciting. We're creating all the stuff right now to start to promote it, but I'm glad I got to speak about it here.
Oh, that's excellent. Marina's stories are where I first saw your book, and I was like, hold up, what? What is this? So I actually was introduced to your book through her.
Oh, great. Oh my gosh. Yay. How fortunate. That's awesome. I'd love to hear that.
Thank you so much for being on today. I love getting to talk to you. I feel like I'm talking to an old friend.
Oh, thank you. I know it's very easy to talk to you. I could talk to you another several hours.
Aw, very sweet. And maybe, I don't know. I'm sure you got a ton of plans, but I don't know if we can, Marina, if you're listening, can we finagle a coffee reading at Galas? I know you have swooch sessions. Maybe we can bring in some coffee and we can have a little after book reading get together.
Oh, so fun. Yes. Yeah. Let's talk. Let's figure it out. I think
it'll have to be decaf though, because if I drink Armenian coffee after noon, I will be up for 3 days straight.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The hair standing straight on end.
Well, I cannot wait to meet you in a little bit and read your next book. And if you want to send me a galley copy, feel free. I won't.
Oh, yeah. Oh, 100%. Yes. I can hook that up.
Oh, thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure speaking with you.
Oh, same here, Laura. Thank you so very much. This is great.
Thank you. You can reach Taleen at www.taleenvoskuni.com or on Instagram at Taleen with 2 E's, Taleen Author, and on Twitter at Taleen Voskuni. As always, the links will be in the show notes for this episode. If you enjoy our podcast, please help spread the word and just share it with your friends or post about it on social media so we can get more people to listen. I was going to make a bad joke, but I was going to be like, and get hate mail. Because I posted something recently about tell me the ways in which you have been told you're not Armenian enough. And I was like, you married someone who wasn't Armenian, you're part of the LGBTQ community, you're, whatever. You're not Christian. I went down the whole list. And man, I woke up some trolls.
Oh,
I have the vitriol. At first I was amused by it. I was like, look at you're crawling out from underneath the rocks and here you are. And, I'm gentle and loving and supportive. And then after a while, I was like, okay, I'm bored of you now. And then I thought, now you're annoying me.
Yes. Oh, that's the way I know. Oh.
But it doesn't matter. That's the price you pay for being out there and for, these ideas becoming more mainstream.
It's true. Yes, I know. So it underscores the bravery of doing it, putting your voice out there.
And you writing this book is actually also incredibly brave. You are the first, and I don't think that's going to be lost on anybody. I mean, I'll always remember where I was when I heard about the first bisexual Armenian protagonist in a novel.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad it's good. I'm so glad it's a good book. Oh my God, what a relief.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. Anyway,
it's reassuring.
yes. And thank you for doing it, and thank you for writing another one. And this is going to be amazing.
Thank you.
I hope everybody goes out and reads it. And if you're in LA or within driving distance, come out to Galas on May 21st, and we'll. I'm sure in the meantime, I'll be posting stuff on my Instagram whenever they have a little flyer or something that's ready to go.
Amazing.
Thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. And remember, until next time, that you are always more than enough.